The image you are looking at was created by the Japanese printmaker Katsushika Hokusai almost 200 years ago. And yet, most people who have seen this image look right past one small detail. A detail Hokusai planted inside the wave itself. A detail so small your eye reads it as foam, and finding it changes what this painting is actually about. The work is called Under the Wave off Kanagawa, although most of the world simply calls it The Great Wave. It is not a painting in the European sense. It is a woodblock print and part of a series titled 36 Views of Mount Fuji, made between 1830 and 1832. Today, it is held at the Met in New York. At first glance, the scene is exactly what it appears to be. A monstrous wave rising out of the sea off the coast of Kanagawa. Its claw-like fingers about to break 3 long, narrow boats. The men inside the boats are crouched low with their heads bowed and their bodies pressed flat against the wood. Lower in the frame, behind the wave, there is a small, white, triangular peak. Most people who see this print for the first time read that peak as a wisp of spray, thrown up by the storm. It is not foam. We will come back to that. To understand what Hokusai was doing in this print, you need to understand who he was, because Hokusai is not a normal artist. Born into a working-class family in 1760, he grew up in Edo, the bustling city we now know as Tokyo. And over the course of his 70-year career, he changed his name more than 30 times. Each name marked a new phase of his work. Each one was a deliberate reinvention. The name Hokusai itself, which roughly means North Studio, he only adopted in his late 30s, and even that one he eventually set aside. But it wasn't just his name that was constantly moving. He was relentless and drew everything from serene landscapes and mythical dragons to the gritty world of sumo wrestlers and courtesans, even publishing drawing manuals for other artists. Honestly, the more I read about him, the more it starts to feel like he was racing against something. When he finally sat down to begin his masterpiece, 36 Views of Mount Fuji, he had already lived an entire artistic life, and yet he was still not satisfied. On his deathbed at 88, he is said to have whispered, "If only heaven will give me just 5 more years, then I could finally become a real painter." That is the man who made the print you are looking at, and you can see that drive the second you look at his choices. The first thing you notice is the color. That deep, almost electric blue in the wave and the sky. That is not a Japanese pigment. It is Prussian blue, a synthetic pigment invented in Berlin in year 1706. It was imported through Nagasaki, the only port open to Dutch traders, and by 1829 it finally became cheap enough for everyday printmakers. Hokusai was one of the first Japanese artists to use it at scale. The timing was perfect, the pigment became available, and within a year he started the series that defined his entire life. The composition itself is mathematically tight. The wave dominates the entire upper left of the image, while the boats sit on a diagonal line that pulls your eye down to the right. Even the fingers of the wave curl forward like real breaking surf. In fact, modern oceanographers have shown that Hokusai's wave perfectly matches the geometry of an actual rogue wave. And at the bottom of the composition, dwarfed by everything around it, is that small, white peak. For 200 years, most viewers have looked at this print without really seeing it. Now, look at that peak again, the one your eye has been reading as foam this entire time. That is not foam, that is Mount Fuji, the most sacred mountain in Japan, the mountain that, in traditional Japanese cosmology, is the literal body of a deity, sits in the lower portion of this print, dwarfed and almost swallowed by the wave above it. And here is the part that should make you stop. The series this print belongs to, Mount Fuji, is the entire subject of the project. Hokusai painted it from 36 different angles, every season and every distance. Yet, in the most famous print of the entire series, the one the world has chosen to remember above all others, he made Fuji almost disappear. This was not an accident. Christine Guth, who in 2015 wrote the definitive book about this print, argues that this is the one image in the series where Hokusai let the wave win, where the mountain the whole project celebrates gets overpowered by what is happening in front of it. Once you see Fuji, the painting stops being a celebration. It becomes something stranger and much darker. The three boats in the foreground are Oshiokuri Bune, fast cargo boats hauling fresh fish from the Izu and Boso peninsulas up to the markets of Edo. The men inside them aren't heroes. They're low-status workers, exposed to a sea that doesn't even know they exist. They are about to die, or come terrifyingly close to it. The wave doesn't care, and the sacred mountain, the body of the god, does nothing to help. And there is one more layer, which I think is the part that genuinely gets me. Hokusai painted this in the 1830s, a generation before Commodore Perry's American warships would arrive at the Japanese coast in 1853 and force the country to open itself to the rest of the world. A Japanese artist, using a European pigment, painted the holiest object in his own country being overpowered by an indifferent sea. He could not have known what was coming, but the print feels almost like a warning, sent backwards through time. That is the painting. A masterpiece built on an imported color, a swallowed mountain, and a handful of fishermen lost in a monstrous sea, all captured by an artist who spent 70 years of his life just trying to become a real painter. Hokusai died in 1849, just 4 years before Perry's ships arrived. He never knew that this one print, which he sold in his lifetime for roughly the price of a bowl of noodles, would go on to become one of the most reproduced images in human history. So here is my question. Had you ever noticed Mount Fuji hidden inside the wave before today? Or had your eye, like most people, been reading it as foam? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next video.